In fact, I was there when she was born in a little local hospital, not too clean, and I was there when the baby was born. And little scary experience because I was watching the doctor. Indonesians had taken over the country, and he was there looking through his books, and I thought, oh, he has never done this. What is the mother going to do if there's a problem? And then the Indonesian midwife, she was running around like crazy, and I said, what is she doing? She didn't know what she was doing. And the baby was ready to come out, and the midwife, the nurse, said to the mother, wait, I don't have my gloves on. So I thought, oh, what a crazy thing to say. When it's ready to come, it comes, and then came out a beautiful little girl, and she was mine, of course, you know that. But we were so excited, and to have this beautiful little girl. She was the fourth one in our family. You might want to know that we had 3 children the first term, and then I got pregnant during furlough and had Vivian, so our kids were very close in age. And but it was a real blessing. But we were so excited that we gave her the name Vivian, which is a French name. You have to put an E at the end. And we forgot to give her a middle name, so she never had a middle name. So now she's Vivian Minor Chili. But, and also the doctor was so excited that when he made the birth certificate, he made a mistake in the date of her birth. So she was born the 20th of February, but he wrote down the 21st. So she takes advantage of that. She has 2 days in a row, she has a birthday. But Vivian was an easy child. I don't think he ever had a spanking. We never spanked him. I can't remember. But as a young age, she had a love for people. She made friends with village people and with kids, and she loved animals. And she still does. She'd love to have a dog, but they live in a tiny place, so it's just not working out right. So she has a nice story she might want to tell about her little wallaby. Want to tell your story?
Sure. I'll just stand here. I speak loudly. I woke up one morning, we were on break from school, and I woke up one morning and my parents said, look what's in the bag on the couch. And they had a little net bag with something in it, and I opened up this net bag, and there it was, a little tiny baby wallaby kangaroo in there, newborn.
Oh.
And so I took that little wallaby, and at that time I was already sewing, and we used to eat rabbits, and so I took the rabbit skin and tanned it and made a little pouch for my wallaby.
May or may not work. I don't know if it's on.
Hello?
Oh,
No.
Nope. Might not have a battery. Oh,
I'll just talk
that
loud.
one's dead.
And this is where I learned about, feeding a baby during the night. That little wallaby would cry in the middle of the night. I had him in a little pouch in a net bag hanging on a nail, and that little kangaroo wallaby would cry in the middle of the night, and I would take him out and I would feed him his little bottle. And I ended up naming him Puddleglum, which is from the book.
One of the Narnia books.
One of the Narnia books, yeah. Unfortunately, Puddleglum didn't live very long, and he was too small to be away from his mother, and I had a private little graveside service by myself with tears just streaming down my face.
Aww.
Well, today is the day to celebrate mothers, but I think it's a good day to celebrate daughters because I have a wonderful daughter, and she, as a young age, she was very, very sensitive of needs of others, and always cared for people, trying to help them. And she, I still remember her. She had a little Indonesian friend, Clara, and decided to go to the local school. I think it was first grade. So she carried a little net bag with a baked sweet potato, and I would see her go to school with Clara and come back. I don't think she learned much from that teacher, but she had fun time. And she had two brothers and older sister, and her brothers, they teased her a lot. They always told her she was adopted. And it made her very upset. And saying, you're not adopted. I was there when you were born. I assure you, you're my daughter. But they had a good time together. There wasn't much to do there on the station. And they didn't have many toys. It was hard to get any toys. We had to order things from Australia. And sometimes things would come broken. So they never complained, and they found things to do. And I still remember they would play church. And Matt was always the preacher. He was the third child, and he would stand on the box and preach, and he would say, and Paul said, this was in French, they were still speaking French. And they had a great time playing church together. And of course I would teach them, and John also, we would teach them how to pray. And at the time we were using flannelgraph pictures, and so I would tell stories, Bible stories to the children. So as a young age they knew about the Bible and they knew how to pray. And their prayers were sometimes funny, pray for everything in the world. But they learned as a young age. And I know that later when they became parents, they practiced the same thing, teaching their children to love the Lord and to pray and to serve the Lord at that time. I want to give you a little bit of my background because I always thought missionaries were way on top there. And I was part of a Brethren church where they didn't have missionaries. So I never heard a missionary speak, but I had a godly grandmother, and I would go to her place, and she really taught me how to pray and trust the Lord. I was a little girl, and she loved to read, and she had all those books about missionary books, and we would read together, and I loved to read. And those missionary stories were really amazing because, I was from Africa and different countries. And I thought, I could never do anything like that. And I said to my grandmother, those women, they're amazing, working, serving the Lord, taking care of children, living through hard times. But I said something funny to my mother. Why is it that they're all perfect? You never show any of their things they did wrong. Well, she smiled. She didn't say anything. But I remember this is funny, but when I went to the mission field, I realized that they were not perfect, and I wasn't perfect. We had happy ones, we had grumpy ones, and some of you were missionaries. And so I was prepared for that. And I remember grandmother smiling and not saying anything. But my mother, they were Christians, but we never had devotions together, or they were more silent prayers. Not that the church believed that, but they were very more reserved about praying. And my relationship with my mother was sometimes a little hard. She was quite a fiery woman, but such a good mother. We went through the war in Belgium for 4 years, and so we went through hard times where, we were hungry and in danger. But my mother would walk to France. We were close to France, and she would go to different farmers to get grain to make flour. And she had made a kind of a girdle where she would put grains in those pockets or pouch. And she sometimes had to cross rivers to go through, and sometimes go in a train. And the Nazis were there watching people, and it was really scary. And she did it for me. I was the only child, and my brother was born at the end of the war. And it's something I never remember, I'll never forget. Our mother sacrifices for her child. She could have lost her life, and so I'm forever thankful for my mother and what I learned from her to sacrifice for my children. I don't know if I ever did. The only sacrifice was to let them go to school and be separate. But I'm thankful for my grandmother, who taught me so much about prayer and trusting the Lord. And so probably one lesson I learned during the war is praying when we were in difficult times, and the Lord would answer prayers. So I remember one time my father was called to the army because we knew that we were going to be invaded, and we ate our supper, and I said to my mom, "What are we going to eat tomorrow?" And she said, "I don't know, let's pray." And she prayed aloud. And as she said amen, we heard a knock at the door, and there was a man from our brethren church who came, and my mother says, "What are you doing at this time of the night? Don't you know it's dangerous to go on the street?" And he said, "Well, the Lord put pressure on me to come and help you, and I really didn't want to, but I didn't have any peace. So he brought us some money, and we had enough food for several days. And these stories I could share with my children later when we went through a hard time. And I was talking to William, asking her if she remembered a story that happened, and all the Lord answered prayer. We had to leave our station because the natives didn't want the Indonesians to come and use our airfield. So they came to us and said, "We're going to close the airstrip. If you want to leave, leave now." Well, our 4 children were at KMK school, and they were going to come on vacation. So we decided to leave, and we went to another station where Martrup and Sandals lived. And so we waited till the kids came home to that station, and we were told that it was safe for us to go back home. So when we arrived at our house, we knew something was very wrong. There was a group of military men, and they were following us, and we didn't feel very safe. And we went in and realized that all our food was gone, and all the clothing I had prepared for the children and blankets. It's called the mountains. And our radio, transmitter radio, was gone. So we had no way to call anybody. And you probably heard this story once from Jeannie Burkhardt, but I'll repeat it. So John said, well, let's get together and pray. And I can still see the 4 children sitting on the couch, very peaceful. They were not grumbling or crying. And so John prayed and said, Lord, if you don't help us, we're lost. We have nothing. And all the natives were hiding in the woods, so we couldn't even get sweet potatoes from them. So we prayed and we said amen, and we heard a knock at the door. And a man from the village said, we have your radio, do you want it? And I said, yeah, please bring it right away. So he brought it, and it was, water was sipping out of the radio. They had put that in the ground. So we thought, oh, it's never going to work. So we prayed again, and John tried the radio, and we had the plane had left, the plane who brought us had left. And we called, and Burkhardt's were on the radio, and we told him our story, and he says, oh, you're lucky, the airplane is still here. We will ask the pilot to wait, and we'll send you some food, but we don't have blankets. Well, the plane came back and brought us some food, but no blankets. So again, we sat with the children, saying, Lord, it's cold here, we don't have warm clothing, and we don't have any blankets. So what are you going to do about it? Well, a miracle happened. In the afternoon, the head of the military comes to our house, his hands full of blankets. He was a Muslim, not even a Christian. And he says, I'm bringing back your blankets. You probably need them. You have children. And I was in tears. I said, Lord, you're so good. And our children witnessed all that. And I don't know, they're all in the ministry. And I'm sure they have gone through hard things where they felt there was no hope or no help. And they could remember those stories when they were young. How the Lord had seen us through and how the Lord answered prayer. And I learned that during the war also, I was so impressed, and my father was called to go to the army just before these Nazis came in. And he wanted to see his mother, who was working in Brussels as a cook. And he said, I really want to see my mother before I leave. So he prayed, and we went to the train station, and the train was pulling in from Brussels, and then there came out my grandmother. She had no way. My father was leaving. We could fold or, send cables. And I was puzzled, and I said to my father, how did she know she had to come? And he said, well, remember we prayed. But I said, well, but she was already in the train when we were praying. And the Lord answered our prayer even before we asked. And these are stories I could share with our children, and they could use, those stories in their own ministry, and to be encouraged, knowing that, we are never alone. Even in difficult situations, the Lord is always with you and takes care of you. So, but in the meantime, I don't know, I always felt the Lord seemed to be calling me. We had 10 meetings and altar call, and I said, yeah, I want to serve you, but in Belgium. It's a needy country. And the Lord didn't say anything, but kept putting pressure on me. Finally, I went to Bible school in Brussels, And we had only 30 students. We had a Dutch or Flemish section and French, and I was in the French section. And so I didn't learn much about being a missionary and raising a family. So John was there in the Dutch class, and he switched to the French class to improve his French, and then he liked me. I think I was about the only girl. He didn't have much choice. I had 2 girls in there. So I always teased him. He said, oh, I made a good choice. So one day in the library, we were not allowed to date, and once in the library, I was there, and he said, have you ever thought about going to the mission field? I said, well, I've thought about it, and I had stayed with a family, missionary family, coming from the state, going to Belgian Congo to help them with their French, named McFarland. So I spent, I think, a year with them, and they were from the CMA. I had never heard about the CMA. So they said, you know, you should, are you interested to be a missionary? I said, yes, but I don't know what to do about it. I don't feel I'm missionary material. I wouldn't know what to do. So they talked to me and said, you know, it's a good mission, you should apply. And but I thought, you know, as a single girl, so I didn't say anything. So we had special meetings in our Bible school, and the preacher asked the questions. If the Lord would call you to go to Africa or this country, he had several choices, would you say yes? And in my heart I say, no, I want to stay in Belgium. I don't want to be as a single girl. That's before John proposed. And the Lord really spoke to me, and at the end I gave up. I said, Lord, you know, if you want to send me overseas, I'll be willing, but please give me a husband. So shortly after that, John asked the question, have you ever thought about going to the mission field, maybe Papua? And I didn't know much about Papua or New Guinea, but a missionary from there, Jerry Rose, had come and had shown pictures about the people there. And I was shocked. I said, oh my goodness, it's so primitive. And but I started thinking about it, and then a Dutch couple, a doctor and his wife wanted to go to Irian Jaya, or there's New Guinea, and they talked to me. They said, you know, they need missionaries there. And so when John asked me, I gave him 3 days before I gave him an answer. I made him wait, and then finally I said, yeah, I think that I feel the Lord is calling me. So we were not allowed to date, so we had to tell the director of the school. And it's a long story, but I tried to make it a little shorter. So we have time to be, am I too long? You didn't say anything. So we applied with the CMA, US CMA, and we were accepted. We were not even married. And I had to go to the Dutch board. They had a board, CMA board in Holland. And we never had any training or told what to expect, but all they asked me, if your husband would die on the field, what would you do? Would you stay? So I said, well, I don't know, I'm not even married. So that was the end of the questions. And John was asked, a man from the States came from the mission and said, you know, being a missionary is very hard. John says, yeah, I know, and that was the end. That's how we were accepted. So we were planning to stay home for 2 years, you know, that's what you're supposed to do. Well, in July, we get a phone call from the mission, says, we want you to leave on the boat, leaving in September. And John says, well, we're not even married. And they say, well, just get married and go. So
excited, Aunt.
So we had just graduated and started dating. So we said, well, we won't make it on the September boat. No, we left in December. And then I was sick as a dog on the ship, and I found out I was pregnant. So we got married in September, I got pregnant in December, so you know.
Scandalous.
We left, and I got there and I said, what am I doing here? I came out of the mission plane and saw the people there, and it's a long story, but the Lord spoke to me and He said, those people, I died for those people, and they need to be saved. And so I prayed, I said, Lord, put your love in my heart for these people. Help me help me to see them through their eyes. And the Lord did it, after a couple of weeks, I did see the way they lived and their nakedness and all that. And they were people who needed to love the Lord. But I want to tell a little bit about our role as a missionary. We had to go language study. I didn't know English, just a little bit of English, and all our lessons were English and the tribal language, which was a struggle. And we had to spend 8 hours a day, and they were watching us, I'm telling you, they were hard on us. You had to sit and study, and I wasn't feeling well, but we went through John knew English, I think he already knew 4 languages then, so it was easy for him. But then we had 3 children. The first Dermot and Vivian was born after the second furlough. And I realized that the Lord had called me to serve Him, to be a missionary, but He had called me also to be a mother. And how do I balance this, doing my work and taking care of my children? And the rule was that you had to work as much as your husband. And I thought, well, how can you do that? We still have to cook and clean and take care of children. So John and I, we talked about it and we prayed about it, and we said, well, we could arrange our schedule and teaching Bible school. We were teaching Bible school and giving out medicine. And I said, well, make sure that somebody is always home with the children. And we didn't trust having babysitters. They were doing just to the white children. So I won't explain, but so we did that and it worked. And we were criticized in a way from some other people, say that, the Lord called you to be a missionary and you should be full-time, but we didn't want to lose our children. And something I heard that really broke my heart. We were visiting our children in Santani, and our oldest daughter, Ruthie, was there talking with some of her friends, and they were talking about their parents. And one girl said, oh, when I come home, my parents don't have time for me. They're busy with their work. And the other girl said, they're so happy when I go back to school, so they can do their work. And Ruthie said, they asked Ruthie, and she said, oh, my parents, they always cry when I leave, but it's okay to cry. They prayed and the Lord gives them grace. But, it broke my heart to hear that. And I said, I didn't feel free to go to their parents and tell them. And I don't know what happened to the children, if because of that they were away from the Lord, I don't know. But I really pray that the Lord would give us wisdom to be careful how we took time to teach our children. So, of course, they had to leave for a preschool, and that was the hardest thing we had to do. And I'm so thankful that there's more freedom now, that you can keep your children or put them in a different school, and they can stay together with the parents, but we didn't have a choice then. And where we live was too primitive. It would not have been fair to keep our children here. So it was hard, and then we would put them on a mission plane, go home and cry, and then the Lord would give us grace and said, the Lord has promised He would take care of our children, and He did. And all our children received the Lord when they were young. And we always told them, we are missionaries, but it doesn't mean that you have to be missionaries. What we want you is to love the Lord and follow Him and teach your children about the Lord. And He did more than we asked. And our 4 children went into ministry and served the Lord and had family. And all they had learned on the mission field as children, they could teach their children. And so we're thankful for what He did in their lives. And I realize that's not because of us parents, but the Lord did it and did the work and gave us the wisdom we needed. So we're thankful for our children, and thankful for my daughter Vivian. They came home to take care of their old parents, and when we're stuck, they come and help us, and they like to sing Rescue the Perishing. Especially mine. But Vivian trying to teach me to do bookkeeping online, and my goodness, I'm 88, and I have to learn all that, but she's very, very patient. And when I need sewing to get done, she does it. And by the way, she's a wonderful seamstress. So if you need sewing, go to her. She's a wonderful thing.
She's a commercial.
And another children I with Mitch and Elaine. When we're stuck, we call Mitch, I need help. And then he's ready to help Elaine. So we're thankful that as we retired, the Lord has given us children to help us, and we're thankful for each one of them. And I found some verses I want to read. Oh yeah. So it's from Psalm 92:14. I was young, now I am old. Yet I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging for bread. They are always generous and give freely. Their children will be blessed.
Amen.
And then Psalm 127. Sons or daughters are an heritage from the Lord. Children a reward from Him. Are like arrows in the hands of a warrior. Our sons and daughters born in one's youth. Blessed is the man or the woman whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame. Then they contend with their enemies at the gate. Well, our quiver was full. We had 4 children, and that's what we were allowed with the mission. So this is my story, and I praise the Lord for what He has done in our life and the life of our children. And we have gone through hard things, and the Lord saw us through. Our children have gone through hard things, their stories. Which, I've forgotten one little thing. One big decision we had to make was about Mitch, and he will mind me telling me because he tells it freely. But when he was 12, he went to clinical depression, and so was very homesick at the DMT school. And they didn't realize what he was going through. They thought he was homesick. So finally somebody says he has a depression. We took him home and he was never really getting better. So we met with a psychologist who came from headquarters, and he said, you know, you have to take him to the States. It's a good age for him to be treated. So he said, call Pastor Sandel at First Alliance Church, and he will help you. And they have a psychiatrist in the church who will help your son. So we talked to the pastor, and they took us in, gave us everything we needed, and the doctor helped Mitch and said, you know, this was a good time for him to be treated, because as he would get older, it would be much harder. And the Lord healed Mitch and made him the man he is now. They have gone through very hard things, and made him very strong. And so we had to leave our ministry and for our children, for JP. He couldn't graduate from Nalat school, but never complained. Very young had to leave her friends, and was hard on her. And Ruthie was going to TFC, and when we arrived, the day after we arrived in Atlanta, we took her to the college, and she cried all night. She was in shock, and a lady, her resident, said she's not ready for this, so we took her home for a year. And I thought, you know, the good things that came out of this, if she had come alone without family, what would she have done? You know? So the Lord knew that. So it was good timing for our family. And for our other kids, you know, when we went back to the field, they had always people to help them. And of course, thankful to Caroline Mallard, who took some of our children and took care of them. And thank you. Yeah. And so this is my story, and thankful for what he did in our lives, and give the time to my daughter again.